Good. Okay, go ahead.
Who was Fox De Moissey, and how important was he in your life? Tell me about him.
Well, Fox De Moissey was in his, I think it was in his early 40s when I first met him in a situation where I was involved with a a school, a proprietary school, and I thought that I wanted to be a lawyer at a late stage in my life, and so I was looking through various lawsuits, and I had gone to the school for about 6 weeks, and the the obvious point was that I couldn't quite get to understand how they got to be a school, but and and therefore I found a case, and the case was about a proprietary school, and Fox De Moissey was the attorney, and the plaintiff was a young man who came back and did an engineering degree on his GI Bill, and from that he had spent about $30,000, and he could have gone to the University of Louisville, but he went to the proprietary school. And the problem was the guy was colorblind, and he was taking a degree in electrical engineering, so obviously he just lost everything. And so Fox just literally tore it up, and he won the case. The other part, the most important part to me, was not just that Fox was taking this case, but how he wrote. Fox came from a very sophisticated family. I could tell that both his later on I learned this was in the early 80s, and I learned that both of his parents were teachers, and obviously the man could write, and I admired this because, well, that's where I came from. I came from a background from a very early age. I was writing plays at the age of 14, and I was having them produced in my later life at 18, 19, 20 on up, and I went on, and but what I liked about Fox was his skill, and then I learned that Fox was not only a skillful writer and a fairly good lawyer. I phoned him up and told him that I wanted to see him, and he saw me. And a lot of lawyers today, of course, comparatively speaking, they fall into little niches, and I don't have a lot of respect for a lot of lawyers. There's two that come to mind, but Fox is the most important. Fox comes to mind every time I think about a real lawyer, and there are plenty of them, I'm sure, out there that are just as remarkable. But I found that he sat down, he talked to me, and we actually filed a lawsuit. And later on, I had to drop the lawsuit because the defendant in the lawsuit was Wyatt Tarrant Combs as the counsel. So I met him that way, and then I met him a couple of years later, and it was in a divorce proceeding, and Fox literally tore from the mechanics of family law, a very, very sensitive issue which I won't discuss, but which affected my children. And one of the things that was so compelling about this man, and is, I'm sure, what makes him the person he is. He stands about 6'6". He was a point guard for Davidson, I believe, and he's very eloquent, and he just he just strikes you as a gentleman and a scholar, and he is. And he graduated from one of I think it was the University of Kentucky, I'm not sure, but from his law degree. And what impressed me about his position, when we got to a point in the litigation, well, it wasn't litigation, it was me interfering with the custody of my children, which were endangered. And because they were endangered, and I think the most important thing in law is for people who deal with family law, is that no matter what happens, you drop all the formalities of legal counsel, and you focus on the children, and that's the main thing. So I had, under advisement, taken up a position with the advice of psychologists, and certainly with Fox leading the way, and I took my children, and I took them into a position of safety, so to speak. And this is going back a long way, but the most important thing that I remember about this time, and it was so unselfish and so pointedly important to me, when the judge stood up and he said, well, you took your children from a dangerous and hostile environment. And he said, I'm going to have to find you in contempt because you didn't have the custodial, you didn't have the custodial right to do that. And so I'm going to find you in contempt. And this guy was, we were sitting down, and so I stood up and I took my contempt citation from this family court judge, and he said, you're going to be fined $250. And then Fox just stood up right with me. He said, Your Honor, if you're going to fine him, you'll have to fine me. And so that truly was Fox. Amazing guy.
That's touching.
Yeah, it is. But what this led to later on was the fact that the judge even admitted, well, under the circumstances, I would have done the same thing, which was the law, and it was the stupidity of the whole thing. But nevertheless, this is how I met Fox De Moissey, and then a couple of years later, and I was dealing with the same issue, but I met him in the hall of the Commonwealth Court in Kentucky, and I said, I've got something I really have to talk to you about. And I had been working for Wyatt Tarrant Combs, and he said, okay, I'll talk with you, but I can't do it right now. And Fox was always there for some reason or other. I think he would have done this for a lot of people, but there was something special, and there is something special about a person who gives time and listens. This is what his skill was more than anything else. And he even said that he listened to his clients, and there was no hullabaloo, bravado or anything with him. This was a true giant, in my opinion. And I've met some of the best lawyers in the world, and they were against me, and very few have been for me. But I have to go back and say, look, if you guys are really looking for who started this whole thing, it's Fox De Moissey, because under the circumstances, no matter how I look at it, when I came to Fox and I said, Fox, I want you to read this, or I know you can't read it, but listen to me, close the door. He closed the door and he listened to me for a couple of minutes. I had finished much of the book that I was to write, which is Intent to Deceive, and it was not really in a rough draft, but it was a pretty rough draft. He looked at it and he said, "Well, I don't know if I could read this, and I can, but I'll listen to you." He listened to me. I told him in the best possible ways how the scientists were being manipulated by lawyers, and lawyers were working for the industry, the tobacco industry. And Fox said it was a Marlboro man. I mean, he was smoking 3 packs a day, and he was. He had tried to quit one time, and it was a wreck. And so I talked to him and said, "Well, I'm going to give you a virus here, and what happens to you when you begin to learn what these people did to your father, your mother, and of course both of my entire family died of smoking-related disease, one way or the other. I know it's not something that happens to every family, but in the people who grew up in the 20s and the 30s were certainly, and his parents probably were not, but Fox had been smoking for a long time, and he eventually quit. But this was I think in December of '92. I approached him. I gave him this information behind closed doors that basically dealt with what I was doing, what I found out, and why I thought these lawyers and the scientists and this is the particular part that I just don't get, and why you let him off in the master settlement agreement. I just don't get it, and I still have this complaint against this whole thing. Fox immediately got it, and he immediately focused on that, but he didn't know how to approach it in terms of how we were ever going to get into this. So it was sort of stopped at this point. So in 1992, as it closed and went into 1993, I had been on unemployment, and I felt this strange sensation, and I had to go to the hospital, and I had bypass surgery, and that's been it's close to it was March 4th, 1993, and the incident was in one way a blessing, because in spite of the fact that I couldn't do anything about it, I was married at the time to someone who got me through this, and I'm very grateful to that, and I'm grateful to having insurance, because a lot of people couldn't have had the attention that I had, and so to Sherry and Fox and the time was not right for me to die, I suppose, and I still had all of this material that I had to do, and so I think I was in the hospital for an intensive care for a few days. It got me out, and I had quadruple bypass, and the thing that I kept thinking about in constant, well, okay, I know enough about this. This is how I'm going to get in the door. This is how I will make it through into the courtroom. And I don't know, this is how I was thinking. Beyond all else, I had to get the documents out, and there was no other way. This was it. And thank God, because I was really looking at the end of my life, or as it turned out, the beginning in another career.